Hey everybody, it's my 125 gallon native tank, and tonight we're going to do a feeding video. We're going to start with a feeding video, then I'll probably wind up taking the camera off the tripod and we'll have a closer look at the fish. So let me get started. I was just up the street fishing for little creek chubs, sunfish, whatever I might have caught. I've been thinking about this tank. Tonight we're going to feed it floating cichlid sticks. I usually break these up a little bit, but a lot of them go in as big chunks of sticks, and they don't seem to mind. They tear them up. So I went out to my favorite haunt today, out to George's Creek, and I saw a lot of very large torpedo-shaped fish down lying on the bottom that I always see when I go out there, and I can never catch them. They always just stay on the bottom, and they never seem interested in whatever my lure is. And today I realized that they are actually creek chubs. If you can see this really big one here that's going to try to bite my finger off. Double that, maybe triple the size of him, and that's what we were talking about. These things were a foot. They were just enormous. So that got me thinking about the long term of this tank. Even these shiners, the ones that are more flat shaped and silvery, those will actually eventually get fairly large in their own right. So I'm going to probably have to wind up thinning this tank out a little bit, removing some of the creek chubs. I probably will keep the shiners, but I probably need to get rid of some of those creek chubs. Now I'm going to throw some sinking algae wafers in there, make sure the sucker fish on the bottom get some food, and then I'll go down the other end and I'll also put some algae wafers down there for the tilapia and the pleco that stay down there most of the time. I even have to put a lot of broken up pieces of algae wafer in there because the creek chubs will even eat them as they sink to the bottom. So while I was fishing, good grief, one of the fish just hit the surface so hard there it knocked the glass up down just off of camera off to the left there. So I'm going to put some more algae wafers in down here on the right hand side, so we'll see if the pleco doesn't come out. We'll try to get him to come down here and be on screen more. I don't know if it was making it on screen before, but it usually comes out when I feed the tank. He knows that the algae wafers are coming, so he's up here in the corner now. I'm hoping he'll make his way to the center of the tank. In fact, if you give me half a second, I will take the camera off the tripod. Alright, so here's my pleco in there looking around for its food. It knows it's in there somewhere. I normally put it down at this end so that the tilapia back there can get some, and so that's what it's doing. It's in there rooting around looking for it, although tonight I put most of the food down at this end or in the middle, and it'll find it, it'll get to it. And then that of course is one of my white sucker fish. I have two of those in this tank. And back there is my Chinese algae eater. We don't see that one very often, but it does come out from time to time and make an appearance. It's not the friendliest of fish, but it's been in this tank for a long time, so I'm just kind of leaving it there and not worrying about it. It's interesting how they're just still staying down this end looking for the food and not moving around. So I considered my options for this tank and what I could do. Again, I think these shiners here, these fish, are probably going to wind up staying in there. And then these more torpedo-shaped creek chubs, I'll probably thin those out a little bit, maybe cut the number by half. They are a schooling fish, so I need to keep a few of them in there together. But they're also so large that I don't think just 2 or 3 of them in there by themselves would really be much of an issue. It's not like they'd be suffering if they weren't in a big school of fish. And it looks like that pleco finally found the food, and it chased that little white suckerfish out of the way. So what I'm considering for this tank is some sunfish, maybe a few sunfish if I get the right species. I did catch a little sunfish while I was, I call it street fishing. There's a little stream across the street from my house, and it's got little creek chubs and stuff in it, as I mentioned earlier. So I'd walked up there this evening and threw a line out, and I caught a few little creek chubs, and I caught a little sunfish, but it is a little green sunfish that I caught, and they are really, really aggressive. I've had them in this tank before, and they're just not the kind of fish I want to put in here. So if I do put any in here, I'll probably just get some simple bluegills, which don't get really big. They've got pretty small mouths, and they don't get very aggressive unless maybe they pair off and go into spawning behavior or something like that. So the trick would be getting ones that were big enough that they didn't get eaten by these creek chubs, because the big ones are definitely staying in there. Chubs here, I'm definitely going to leave in there because I want to see how big he will eventually get. And then I'll probably pick 2 of the larger ones to stay with him. And then the rest of them will probably go. So maybe like this one up here will stay. And maybe even that one in the back, because those are pretty good and sizable ones. Or possibly these 2 down here. I don't know. But I'm just rolling some ideas around. There is my other white suckerfish. They usually hang around together, and they were very different sizes when I got them. The one was much larger than the other one, so you can see how much the smaller one has grown. And the big one, in fact, they've both grown quite a bit. They've gotten a lot bigger since they've been in this tank, but they've been in there for a couple of years now, so that's not surprising. And I do have one of these white suckerfish in my waterfall tank as well, so we'll get to see that one grow out significantly over the years too, hopefully. So, I don't know, like I said, I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I think I'm probably going to wind up doing at least some sunfish in this tank this summer, if I can find the ones I'm looking for, as I said. And I've also considered if I can find a yellow perch, but that will have to come from a specific place. I'll either have to find a place where I can buy one, or I will have to find somebody's private property to fish on where I'll be allowed to keep fish no matter what size they are, because in order for me to keep a perch, if I catch it out of the reservoir or the river or something, it's got to be a foot long for me to even keep it. So I don't, I'm not trying to bring home a foot long yellow perch to put in this tank. I was thinking more along the lines of 4 or 5 inches, maybe a small yellow perch, and watch it grow out for a little while, because they get really aggressive too. And I don't know how well that would work in the long run. So I'm going to leave these guys to it and get on with feeding the rest of the tanks in the room. You can see they still keep hitting the surface occasionally as those floating sticks make their way around in the current. And as they get softer and start to break apart and drift down into the tank, they'll dart out. So the rest of the evening there'll be plenty of food in there. And as you can imagine, the waste builds up in this tank pretty quickly. It's very, very, very heavily stocked. So that's it. Thanks for watching this one. Don't forget, this one is my 125-gallon native tank, despite the fact that I do have a Pleco and a spotted tilapia from West Africa in this tank. It is mostly native. So thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you real soon on the next one.